On today's show, Santa Monica college students are upset about tuition hikes, but those aren't tears of frustration on their faces. We'll tell you about the latest use of excessive force by police on a California campus. Super PACs are spending millions of dollars to sway elections, but what's stopping corporate media outlets from following the money? We'll tell you who's trying to keep reporters off the money trail. And the outcry over the Trayvon Martin murder is prompting the media to pay more attention to other cases of civil rights abuse, like the story of an unarmed black woman who was shot in Chicago. We have the details. I'm Jared Jakang Mayer. Each week we cover stories from the front lines of the Occupy Wall Street movement and give the microphone to you, the 99%. You're watching Occupy the Media. Thanks for checking out Occupy the Media. This show is an effort by Free Speech TV to stay on top of the latest news from the Occupy Wall Street movement. To join the conversation, call us toll-free at 877-575-FSTV. Tell us about the issues that are important to you: the lack of jobs, racial profiling, runaway home foreclosures, debilitating student loan debt. Or if you have a question about the Occupy movement, our lines are open, 877-575-FSTV. We have another great show today, so let's get started with headlines. Occupy Atlanta is celebrating a huge win. The group succeeded in preventing hundreds of AT&T employees from losing their jobs. Last December, the telecom giant said it planned to lay off 740 workers in the eastern region. In reaction, hundreds of community members took part in rallies, sit-ins, and spent over 40 nights outside the corporate offices in Atlanta. AT&T says it will keep 255 positions intact. Protesters say people of color are underrepresented at the University of California at Berkeley. While minority students make up half of the state's high school graduates, they account for just 18% of UC Berkeley's freshman class. That's why 20 activists occupied a building at the university, demanding an end to what they say is discrimination. University and high school students, as well as community supporters, joined the demonstration. Not everyone wants to listen to New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg speak at a commencement ceremony, at least not all students at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. A group of graduates are organizing an alternative commencement ceremony after university administrators ignored their petition to have Bloomberg replaced as the commencement speaker. The students began circulating the petition last December. They say they didn't like Bloomberg's treatment of Occupy Wall Street protesters and journalists during that group's eviction last fall. And good news for West Virginia retirees. Some of Occupy's oldest protesters are getting their retirement benefits back. Several months ago, we reported how metal manufacturer Century Aluminum dropped health coverage for over 500 retirees and their families. Former workers created the group Occupy Century Aluminum and set up a protest camp outside the closed factory. The retirees, some in their 70s and 80s, stood their ground and braved the elements for months, despite health issues. As part of the settlement, workers will now get the health coverage they were promised. April 9th marked the first day of spring training. An outfit called the 99% Spring aims to train 100,000 people across the country in nonviolent action. They are preparing for more protests focusing on inequality and student loan debt. Planners hope that 50,000 people will undergo the boot camp in person, while another 50,000 will learn about protesting techniques online. The 99% Spring is made up of progressive organizations that share common goals with the Occupy movement. And the Easter weekend saw the resurrection of the Occupy movement in Chicago, where protesters gathered for a number of festivities throughout the day to celebrate the beginning of the Chicago Spring. Check it out.
Occupy Chicago kicked off its spring initiative with a big day of action that spanned 13 neighborhoods and even infiltrated the suburbs. The Freedom Festival marked the beginning of several direct actions planned for May. Protesters drew attention to issues like foreclosures and inequality, though activists also spoke out against a so-called American genocide, which they say is the suppression of minorities through governmental policies. Occupy Chicago is gearing up for major protests during the NATO conference, slated to take place in the Windy City in May. The group planned on protesting the G8 conference, but its location was changed from Chicago to Camp David. Occupy Chicago saw this policy change as a victory, since the planned protest affected U.S. government agenda. Activists say they are excited about the number of participants in the inaugural event. They expect the number to double by May Day. For Occupy the Media, this is Caroline Briggs.
That wraps up the latest news coming out of the Occupy front. But first, let's talk about this upcoming Chicago Spring. Sitting here in our studio today is Marcy Miranda, Free Speech TV's news producer, and Scott SILBER, founder of National Intervention, a project challenging the power of corporations and big money in politics. Okay, so Marcy, the Chicago Spring, a lot of people might forget about the second city when it comes to Occupy protests, since so much has been focused on New York and California, namely Oakland. But what's going on there in Chicago?
People certainly shouldn't forget, actually, because this is going to be really the epicenter, I think, of the movement to come in the spring. They've gone out and they've said, we've come out of hibernation, look at us, look at all that we've been doing and how we're going forward with this. And a lot of planning and protests and rallies and marches are going to be coming down the pike, in addition to the stuff that already happened this weekend, to really show people that the 99% is still very alive and active there.
And what's the next big event that they're organizing for?
They're looking forward to May Day, May 1st, when Occupy Chicago, like so many other occupations across the country, are going to be going out and doing protests and marches and rallies and really, calling for solidarity with other interest groups, immigrants' rights and labor, just to say that, we're all part of the 99% and we're going to take back America.
So the Chicago Spring, it's just part of this bigger effort that everyone's talking about, the Occupy Spring. And Scott, as we move toward this, this rejuvenation, as it were, of Occupy actions, what are the things that you're looking for as someone who is an activist and an organizer for what's going to really make this movement keep its momentum?
Yeah, I think that the first hurdle needs to be sustaining the growth and the success of Occupy so far. Nobody 6 months ago thought that the terms 99% and 1% would be household terms. And so to build on that is a key element, but also not just to sustain, but to gain, to use strategic organizing training like the 99% is doing, and to tap into those existing organizations, those local labor unions, those congregations that already have leadership and a way to bring in more numbers and continue to grow so that they can really build that bridge to the true 99%.
Okay, and we're going to be talking more about this throughout the hour, but let's move on to our next topic. In California, college students have been pepper sprayed by police again. Students at Santa Monica College, reacting to another round of tuition hikes at their school, tried to speak out, but rather than being heard, many left the building in ambulances. We'll get into that discussion in a minute, but to those of you watching out there, we want you to chime in as well. Have you heard about this latest pepper spraying incident? Does this say something about the state of free speech in the U.S.? Call us at 877-575-FSTV. The lines are open and the call is toll-free. Okay, so Marcy, give us some context here about this latest pepper spraying incident.
Yeah, well, you had about 100 protesters who came out to this Board of Regents meeting. And they were basically
these are students.
Students and community members as well. And they were coming out to Santa Monica College to protest this proposed tier tuition system in which you had core classes, math and English classes that everyone needs to take if you want to get any degree in college. Those were going to be higher, more tuition than the regular elective classes. And they went to say this is really unfair. And they were met with pepper spray, essentially, inside a building, inside an open door, a public meeting, because police officers felt...
But if you look at the video, though, it does seem that, there's a bunch of different cell phone videos out there, but it seems that there was a number of people that were trying to get into the room, and it may have been over capacity or something like that, but then police... what do they say? Why did they say that they felt the need to deploy pepper spray on students?
Well, I haven't read the police or any statements coming out and saying that it was necessary. But the building in which, or the room in which the meeting was taking place was filled to capacity, and police were trying to get some of the protesters to go to a separate room within that building to continue listening. And I think maybe they just felt that things were getting out of hand.
And officials there have opened an investigation into this incident. But Scott, what's your take? Because this incident is just one in a number of incidents dealing with pepper spray, most notably the big one that happened last fall there at, where was it at?
UC Davis.
UC Davis,
Yeah.
where the notorious imagery that came out of that. Pepper spray on college students, is that surprising to you?
Well, it's never surprising, but it's always disappointing. As universities, especially public universities, become more and more in the pocket of corporate interests. For example, at the University of Colorado, only 5% of that public school is publicly funded. And UC system in California has been undergoing this transformation for a longer time.
And really devastated by the amount of budget cuts and the tuition hikes that students are facing. Okay, well, let's throw this out and hear from some of our viewers out there. The number is 877-575-FSTV. What do you think about more California students being pepper sprayed? Did the students step over the line, or did the campus police go too far? This is our telephone mic check. Okay, and we do have a caller on the line from LA. It's Natalia. You're on Occupy the Media.
Hi, thanks for having me. I just wanted to thank you for doing this. I'm one of the members of Occupy Colleges, and this is really important. And I just wanted to address one of the things that you were saying about why did the police possibly act in this way, or the students? And I think it needs to be said that the meeting was the size of a classroom. That's where the location was, and they only allowed 7 students to speak on behalf of the 100 students that showed up. So we really didn't have the space even to have a meeting of this kind of.
And so, Natalia, were you actually there when this happened?
No, I was not there, but I've talked with many students that have been there, and have been definitely said that the police did not act appropriately in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for your call, Natalia. We're running out of time, but thanks for that insight. So that's an interesting facts right there, that there wasn't enough room, but they're deploying pepper spray in an educational institution. There's classes going on there.
And one of the other interesting things that came out of this is that because this was an open meeting and people from the community could come, there was a family there, and there was a 4-year-old who was also not hit pepper sprayed in the face,
but
he was in the vicinity, right? And he's 4.
Put at risk. Well, and in general, you always see this sort of situation where it's a public meeting, but there isn't room or freedom for the public to actually participate, and that can and often will be enforced by the police. And the question we always have to keep in mind is, until the police wake up and recognize their role as workers, are we aware of the interests that they are protecting? And is it the interest of the public in this case at a university, or is it the interest of the private sector?
And I also wonder, Scott, kind of going off that, is that at these colleges, a lot of these campus police, their budgets are on the line too. Mm-hmm. They're facing layoff. They're facing budget cuts. You wonder if the stress and the strain there is percolating, and they might be getting a little trigger happy with the pepper spray. But we're going to be talking a lot about this throughout the hour. We're going to take a quick break, but stay with us. Up next, we'll talk about the Republican congressman who wants to be Robin Hood, only under his plan, he'd like to take from the poor and give it to the rich. Also, if you have a computer, if you have a smartphone, join the debate online. Do you think the California students' First Amendment rights were violated? Should police have used pepper spray to prevent them from attending a public meeting at a Santa Monica college? We're at facebook.com/freespeechtv and hashtag OccupyFSTV on Twitter.
Hello, I'm Antoinette June, and this is your Occupy update. April 25th is the Student Debt Day of Action. On April 25th, activists, students, and occupiers will gather at Union Square in New York City from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. On that day, the total amount of student loan debt in the U.S. is due to top $1 trillion. For more information, please visit onetday.org.
You're watching Free Speech TV, a network powered by the people.
We've got a relationship between corporations and the public that is seriously out of balance, and this ridiculous tax situation that you just mentioned is one of the symptoms. I mean, in 2008, Goldman Sachs, which received a massive bailout that same year and also made massive profits, paid 1.1% in taxes. And, you know, we'll hear from conservatives that, you know, these corporations don't really owe us anything. They're job creators, blah, blah, blah. Well, they actually owe the public quite a bit, and we need to remember that, and we need to blast through this mythology that's been handed to us for the last 30 years by conservatives and neoliberal economists. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we pay a tremendous amount for corporations to have their workforce educated. We pay for infrastructure that allows them to do their business. In the case of a company like Goldman Sachs, we pay tremendous amounts in defense spending so that they can have safe markets in foreign countries and have new markets opened up for them. So this idea that they don't owe us anything is absolute hogwash.